Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely transform how you look at the world. Seriously, forget those flat, static maps you had to memorize back in middle school. Instead, we are diving deep into the invisible, incredibly dynamic systems that actually run global affairs right now.
So what actually determines global power today? I mean, intuitively, you might think it all comes down to rigid borders and massive armies, right? But as we unpack the sources for this explainer, you're going to see why the reality of modern power is way more complex. It's highly interconnected, and honestly, it's surprisingly invisible.
Okay, let's lay down a quick baseline with a word you hear all the time, geopolitics. Now, for centuries, this was a brutally physical game. Think about it. Mountain ranges acted as the original border walls protecting massive empires. Big rivers birthed entire civilizations, and vast oceans were the only way to get global trade moving. At its core, geopolitics is just a study of how countries leverage everything from that physical geography to modern tech to flex their influence on the world stage.
Here's our roadmap for the next few minutes as we trace the evolution of global power. We'll be hitting 5 key areas. 1. The foundations of global power. 2. Strategic geographic choke points. 3. The critical infrastructure web. 4. Hard, soft, and hybrid power. And finally, 5. The future battle space. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Foundations of global power. Let's start with those enduring physical realities. Because, despite all our wild technological leaps, a nation's physical location is still absolutely crucial to its underlying strength.
Think about how certain countries just hit the geographic jackpot with deep, easy access to major ocean trade routes, those massive watery highways moving global goods. Other nations have to rely on immense territorial depth or huge natural barriers just to protect what's theirs. The thing is, even in our hyper-digital modern era, military forces still fundamentally need physical ports, massive logistics chains, and hard concrete infrastructure. The classic game of physical geography, it's very much still being played.
Moving into Section 2, Strategic Geographic Choke Points. Physical geography doesn't just give you an advantage, it creates massive, unavoidable vulnerabilities, funneling all that global wealth through some really narrow and really fragile corridors. We're talking about places like the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Strait of Malacca. A crazy high percentage of global trade is forced through just these few narrow maritime bottlenecks. I mean, remember a few years back when that one single cargo ship got wedged in the Suez Canal? It basically gridlocked nearly $10 billion of trade every single day. That right there is the sheer fragility of a geographic choke point. If you disrupt any of these spots, you can instantly devastate global shipping, spike gas prices overnight, and totally crush economic stability around the world.
But here is where things get wild. That traditional physical movement is now perfectly mirrored by digital movement. While vital resources like oil physically pump through pipelines, our data, literally everything from massive global financial transactions to highly complex AI algorithms, is constantly flowing through undersea cables and cyber networks. Actually, get this, a mind-bending 99% of all international data traffic travels through physical cables, literally just resting on the ocean floor. That invisible, non-physical infrastructure is every bit as essential to global power today as a massive fleet of cargo ships.
Which brings us to Section 3, the critical infrastructure web. This is a total paradigm shift. Geopolitics has officially blasted past land, sea, and air, expanding outward into cyberspace, outer space, and these incredibly complex global supply chains.
Power grids, ports and airports, telecommunications networks, financial systems, and those undersea cables we just talked about. We used to think of these things as just, economic conveniences, right? Systems that just made life a bit easier and kept businesses humming. Not anymore. Every single item on this list is now classified as a strategic national asset. This is critical infrastructure, absolutely essential for a nation to simply survive and be secure. Honestly, whoever controls or disrupts these systems holds the real power.
When you map out the anatomy of modern threats, you start seeing these incredibly precise, critical vulnerabilities where physical disruptions and cyber attacks just collide. A nation really doesn't need to roll tanks across a border to cause absolute devastation anymore. Why would they? They just need to compromise the digital networks that run the power grids, the shipping ports, or the massive data centers. It's a totally different kind of battlefield.
Section 4. Hard, soft, and hybrid power. Because with entirely new battlegrounds come entirely new ways to fight, forcing us to completely rethink how nations actually exert power over each other.
Traditionally, you'd split global influence into 2 distinct buckets. On one side, you had hard power, Think military capability, coercion, and heavy economic pressure. On the other side, soft power. Influence won through diplomacy, culture, tech, education, and forming international partnerships. But today, modern states almost never rely on just one. They are constantly blending these two approaches, wielding the underlying threat of military force while simultaneously pushing the appeal of their tech or cultural influence.
And this blending leads directly to what we call hybrid warfare. It's this complex, continuous state of competition involving cyber attacks, carefully crafted disinformation campaigns, economic sanctions, infrastructure disruption, and proxy conflicts. And the kicker? All of this is waged without ever officially declaring war or engaging in direct head-to-head military confrontation. Nations are fighting this intense, invisible geopolitical competition every single day, right in the shadows.
If you doubt how seriously the world is taking this, just look at the heavy-hitting organizations tracking it. NATO, CSIS, Chatham House, the RAND Corporation, and ISS. They're pouring massive, absolutely unprecedented resources into analyzing these shifting tides of international security. They're constantly studying how geopolitics interacts with these hybrid threats, simply because, well, the old rulebook is pretty much out the window at this point.
Section 5, the future battle space. Because as we look ahead, this competition isn't chilling out, it is aggressively accelerating, pushing deeper into domains that literally did not exist a few decades ago.
Welcome to the new frontiers. Artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, satellite systems, semiconductor manufacturing, and quantum computing. Guys, these aren't just trendy Silicon Valley buzzwords. These are the ultimate strategic national assets right now. Take semiconductors, for example. Those tiny chips running everything from your smartphone to an advanced missile system. Over 60% of them are manufactured in just one single geopolitical hotspot. Having control over these specific technologies now directly dictates a nation's intelligence capabilities, its military edge, its economic resilience, and ultimately, its global influence.
It all forms this breathtakingly interconnected reality, a true global system. When you look at how the dense web of satellite nodes up in orbit, undersea data cables, and cyber networks is layered directly on top of traditional shipping lanes and air corridors, it's wild. Every major state is now forced to compete across all these multiple domains simultaneously. It is this incredibly complex, constantly shifting network of geography, trade, technology, and sheer power.
But you have to contrast that glowing, hyper-connected network with the much darker reality of the future battle space. We're talking about an arena completely devoid of physical borders. State-sponsored hackers, sophisticated AI algorithms, and widespread disinformation campaigns. These are the literal new front lines of state competition. Constant information warfare and system breaches are happening as we speak, actively threatening the very foundations of global stability.
And, we absolutely cannot forget that while tech is racing forward at breakneck speed, the physical reality of our planet is literally shifting right beneath our feet, which just compounds everything. Climate change, the melting of Arctic ice that's opening up brand new, highly contested shipping lanes, mass migration pressures, and critical water scarcity, these are creating a whole new breed of geopolitical challenges. Nations are now scrambling and competing for resources that are only just now becoming accessible.
Let's pull all of this together with one core realization. Power is no longer determined by territory alone. Today, it is determined by who controls the systems that keep the world connected. If you really want to understand modern global affairs, you absolutely have to look past the traditional physical map. You have to see the invisible architecture, the tech, the critical infrastructure, and those hidden digital pathways running silently beneath the surface.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought. In a world where the battlefield is quite literally everywhere, but entirely invisible, who is truly secure? Think about that the next time you flip on your lights at home, log into your bank account, or just read the morning news. That invisible map, it is always active. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes open to the systems truly running our world.